They're getting some breaking news in the investigation into the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie.
Day 94. National television just arrived at what this investigation has been documenting for 3 months. Tonight, a major broadcast network aired a primetime special on the Nancy Guthrie case and brought its cameras, its correspondents, and its audience of millions to a story that has refused to go quiet. That matters. Not because a television broadcast validates what the evidence already confirms, but because it signals something the people responsible for this crime cannot ignore. The pressure on this case is not fading. It is compounding. And Nancy Guthrie is still missing. The evening of January 31st, 2026 was exactly the kind Nancy loved. Family. Warmth. Food and conversation without a clock on it. She had dinner with her daughter, played games, spent unhurried time with the people she was closest to. When the evening ended, she was driven home. At 9:48 that night, the garage door at her house in the Catalina Foothills closed behind her. She was home. She was safe. And for a few more hours the world was still the world she recognized. But while Nancy settled in for the night, someone else was already moving toward her. Someone who had done their preparation. Someone who understood the layout of that neighborhood, knew which cameras existed, knew the routines of an 84-year-old woman living alone in a quiet corner of Tucson. That person was coming, and they had been planning it carefully. After midnight in the early hours of February 1st, a masked figure approached Nancy's front door. The surveillance footage that emerged from that moment became one of the most widely circulated images in the entire investigation. The figure moved with deliberate purpose, head angled downward, aware of the camera. And then came the detail that told investigators exactly what kind of person they were dealing with. The figure turned back toward the yard, reached down, grabbed a handful of foliage and used it in a clumsy, awkward attempt to cover the doorbell lens. It was not the move of a trained operative. It was the move of someone who had thought this through but was not operating at a professional level. That distinction would shape the entire investigative profile that followed. Someone had planned this. The attempt to obscure the camera alone confirmed premeditation. But whoever stood on that porch had prepared imperfectly, and imperfect preparation leaves traces. At 1:47 in the morning, the Nest camera at Nancy's home went dark, disconnected from the network. At 2:12 another camera on the property detected movement. 16 minutes later at 2:28 Nancy's pacemaker disconnected from the monitoring app on her phone. The digital record of an 84-year-old woman's life went cold. And with it went any simple answers about what had happened inside that house during those 41 minutes. The following morning, the first indication that something was catastrophically wrong came not from inside the family but from outside it. A friend who watched a streaming church service with Nancy every week noticed she was not responding. Not answering calls. Not online. Something felt wrong. The friend contacted the family. At 11:56 in the morning, family members went to the house. 7 minutes later at 12:03 someone called 911. By 12:15 Pima County Sheriff's deputies had arrived and the search for Nancy Guthrie had officially begun. What those first responders found inside and around that home set the tone for everything that followed. There were signs of a struggle. Evidence that something violent had taken place in the night. And there was blood. Not an ambiguous mark that could be explained away. A visible, undeniable trail near the front door. Within hours the story had reached every platform and every screen in the country. The Today Show opened without Savannah Guthrie. Her colleagues sat in her place with grief visible on their faces. The Pima County Sheriff held a press conference carried live coast to coast. He confirmed that Nancy required medication and that going without it for more than 24 hours could prove fatal. This was not just an investigative clock. It was a medical one. That same day, a local Tucson television station received a ransom note. It contained specific details about what Nancy had been wearing at the time of her disappearance. Details that had not been made public. Details that only someone who had been there and had seen her could have known. The note included 2 deadlines. And then investigators said the words that removed any remaining ambiguity about what had happened. It is evident that she was moved from that house against her will. Nancy Guthrie had been abducted, premeditated, violently executed from her own home in the middle of the night. The DNA collected from the scene was processed and returned results confirming Nancy's presence. And then something else. Unknown DNA. Profiles that did not match Nancy. Did not match any member of her family. Did not match anyone with a documented reason to have been inside that house. Unknown DNA found at the scene of a confirmed abduction is not a secondary detail. It is potentially the most powerful piece of physical evidence in the entire case. If that profile can be matched through a direct comparison with a person of interest or through a hit in the Cody's national database, it could be the thread that unravels everything. The pacemaker became one of the most remarkable investigative elements this case produced. Nancy's device is not simply a medical instrument. It emits a Bluetooth signal detectable by specialized equipment within a limited range. The FBI deployed a helicopter carrying a signal detection device mounted to its skids and was seen moving slowly at unusually low altitude over the property and surrounding neighborhood in a search pattern that puzzled observers until the explanation became clear. That helicopter was not searching visually. It was listening electronically for the faint signal of a device implanted in the chest of a missing woman. It was one of the most human applications of technology this investigation has produced. Whether the signal was ever detected during those flights has not been publicly confirmed. A black glove recovered along a roadside in the area during the search was sent immediately for forensic analysis. Investigators worked to extract a DNA profile from it to determine whether it connected to the unknown DNA already recovered from inside the house. Every piece of physical evidence at this stage represented a potential thread. The question was always the same. Which thread, when pulled, would bring everything else with it? The suspect profile that emerged from forensic height analysis placed the figure at Nancy's door between 5'9" and 5'10" with an average build, carrying a 25-liter Ozark Trail backpack. Former FBI Special Agent Maureen O'Connell addressed the question of what that backpack likely contained with the directness of someone who has spent years working violent crime scenes. Restraints, tape, rope, a tarp. These are the materials a person engaged in a premeditated abduction brings. The backpack was not incidental. It was equipment. Whatever was inside it was part of a plan someone had constructed deliberately for what they intended to do inside that house. The weapon visible at the suspect's waistband added another dimension. This was not someone who arrived uncertain and under-equipped. This was someone who came armed, who came prepared for resistance, and the blood trail at the door confirmed that violence had in fact occurred. The terrain surrounding the Catalina Foothills is not the flat open desert landscape most people picture when they imagine Arizona. It is dense with brush, scored with deep washes carved by decades of seasonal rain, ridged with thorns on nearly every plant. The washes run between and behind houses, under roads, through undeveloped lots, connecting one part of the neighborhood to another through routes that most people never use and many never know exist. At night the area goes almost completely dark. No streetlights in most residential sections. Homes set far back from roads, partially screened by vegetation. A vehicle parked along the side of the road would be invisible from most surrounding properties. A person moving through the brush would be audible to no one. Former Pima County SWAT Commander Bob Kroger, who spent nearly 5 decades in law enforcement, put it directly. You could be 20 feet from a road and if someone drove past they would not see you. The terrain conceals. And somewhere within it or somewhere beyond it Nancy Guthrie was waiting to be found. The possibility that Nancy may have been moved across the border into Mexico was raised early and never fully dismissed. The U.S.-Mexico border sits approximately 60 miles south of Tucson. A distance coverable in under an hour on the highway. If she was taken south, the complexity of her recovery increases exponentially, requiring international coordination and navigation of a law enforcement environment that operates under fundamentally different structures. The reward for information leading to Nancy's safe return stands at $100,000. The tip line has received more than 13,000 calls. The FBI is engaged at the highest levels. Director Cash Patel flew to Tucson personally, a signal not of routine oversight but of the federal government's full commitment to this case. Nancy Guthrie is a mother, a grandmother, a woman of deep faith who raised her children alone after losing her husband, who built a career shaping young journalists at the University of Arizona, who tended her garden and showed up faithfully to church and made her neighborhood feel like a community. She deserves to be found. If you have any information, call 1-800-CALL-FBI. The answer to where she is still exists. Someone has it. And this investigation is not stopping until it surfaces.